Ready to get started back. Appreciate you hanging around for that's Southern for I appreciate you. Appreciate you hanging around for the second panel. And this one is on booking and artist management. Our panelist to my immediate right is Trish McClanahan, who is a graduate of UT Knoxville. She spent 3 years at Dale Morris and Associates in the late 80s, after which she joined Starstruck Entertainment, which was Reba McEntire's organization, and stayed there for 20 years. And this is why I can't memorize this, because she did so much there. During her time at Starstruck, she worked in concert promotions, sponsor facilitation, touring, and public relations, ultimately rising to the position of VP of Marketing at Starstruck. She was also instrumental in developing product extensions for the Reba brand, including clothing line, shoe line, bed and bath line, and home goods, as well as promoting books, movie, a TV sitcom, a Broadway show, and multiple albums. So she's done a lot in her years in the industry. In 2007, she expanded her duties there into management with the Starstruck client Kelly Clarkson. You may have heard of her. In 2010, she left Starstruck to form McClanahan Management, where she has overseen the careers of Pawn Shop Kings, Troy Olson, and served as a consultant for TV and movie stars Katie Stevens and Josh Henderson, as well as the music artists Lisa Marie Presley and Scotty McCreery. Since 2014, she has been the sole manager for country sensation Lauren Elena, who has done many things, as you know, but Lauren Elena will serve as direct support for the Blake Shelton tour in this year in 2019. So say hello to Tricia McClanahan. And on the end out there is UNA alum Blake McDaniel, who should be no stranger to most of our students. He comes at least once a year and speaks and has been very gracious with his time over the years. We're proud of him. He has a music business degree as well as an MBA from UNA, and he's worked at CAA, Creative Artists Agency, for the past 19 years. He is currently chair. Notice about this, Blake has a good, healthy, wide streak of altruism in his resume as well, of all the things that he does and gives back, not to just you guys, but to other causes as well. Currently serves as the chair of the Nashville Municipal Auditorium Board, on the board of the Nashville Association of Talent Directors, and was a charter member of the Bellevue YMCA Board. He has spent time on the Rules and Induction Board of Alabama Music Hall of Fame. He is advisor to CAA Nashville LGBT Committee, advisor to CAA Training Program, as well as many other things. He works especially close with the career of Lauren Elena and Alabama. You may have heard about Alabama's tour. He is also a team member on Topgolf's representation and Academy Award production company, Believe Entertainment. There are a lot of other things that have to do with charities, and I won't go into all of that. Hopefully some of that will come up along the way, but say hello to Blake McDaniel. Thank you both so much. Appreciate it. I wanted to start out, always in my business, we always look for those teaching and learning opportunities. And with students, many of them are getting ready to graduate, getting ready to intern, and they're looking for maybe that one thing. What do I want to do? I want to be a concert promoter. I want to be a manager. I want to be a this or that. And they look for that one thing. But when you look at your resumes, your lives, and when I look at successful people's lives in our industry, the one thing that almost all of them have in common, rather than that one thing, is they have done a number of different things. So I'll go to you first, Tricia. Would you agree with that, or should they just be looking for a portal of entry? Because you did a lot, particularly at Starstruck.
Oh, I think if you want to be in the music business in particular, and I can't speak to other industries, but I think you just have to get in the door, find that portal, what it is. I always think if you can come in and sweep the floors, you be the best floor sweeper, and then you're going to get them off the floors too. You know, you're always going to keep moving up. But I think absolutely. And in the beginning, I did everything that I could. I started, my major was in advertising at UT, so I did freelance brochures, which in those days you had to really not use a computer and do it by hand and a printer, and it was a complicated process. But I knocked on doors on Music Row and asked them if they had any projects like that they wanted me to do. And That's how I kind of found my way into Del Morris initially. And I wanted to be in concert promotions, but I just wanted to use something to get myself in the door. Yes, I would agree with that.
And Blake, talking about that one thing, I know your story, so I don't want to spoil it because I'm sure it will come through as we begin talking here. But you weren't looking for that one thing as much as that one thing found you. You took the Monday job rather than the Friday job, and that was that one thing.
Correct. And what I was looking for was the label side of things, and that was just when Napster kind of started coming online. File sharing started happening because prior to then, all the money was centered and focused in the label side. And so, I got to town. None of the labels wanted me. They all kind of rejected me after, giving them my resumes and all that kind of stuff. And so I went to a staffing agency that staffs receptionists and things like that and said, look, this is what I told them. I will sweep floors if it is for a business that is music industry. I just need that first job. That's all I need. And I'll figure it out from there. And so, they gave me a Friday job and a Monday job. I took the Monday job, which ended up being filing paperwork and filling in for receptions at CAA. And so, I started there as a temp and then just kind of worked my way from there. So that's it. Trish has been able to kind of dip her toe into different places, and whereas I've just kind of been at CAA the whole time. But interestingly enough, I've been there when I first started. It was like 16 people, and now we're at, wasn't it 150, I guess, something like that. At least that's in our office. But yeah, that's kind of how it came to me. So then as I saw the industry changing and evolving, it felt like the live side of things was where it was kind of leading, in which I was right. It was all the finances and money kind of shifted to that side. I like the pace of it. It's really fast pace. It's intense, and I like that. I don't like to get bored. There's not a lot of monotony because you're constantly dealing with different buyers, different venues, different artists, So yeah, it kind of found me.
Speaking of the live side, from the artist point of view and the manager point of view, and certainly from your point of view, you look at the numbers, the year-end reports from Polestar, year after year after. It's like 2018 was, according to them, a year of records, and everything is just on fire. The live is where it is where the money is. It's where people are willing to spend the money. They won't spend much on the recorded side, but they'll spend $250 for a ticket all day long if it's an artist they love. And according to Polestar, Mark Geiger, who is a big shot, said we can look at for huge growth. I think he said from 10 to 15, but he committed to 10 years. He said, we're going to look at huge growth on the live side for at least the next 10 years. From your perspectives, whoever wants to take that first, you think that's accurate? Are we in for a 10-year boom in live?
Oh, I think so, just because the experience continues to change. So I think what people are buying and why they're willing to pay $250 a ticket is you're selling them an experience. And because of technology and the lights and the screens, and live is always evolving. And the CD's not. The CD's a great experience, but it's not what you get live.
Yeah, it's when the live side started really becoming a behemoth. I think it's a convergence of several things that happened. First of all, people's disposable income. They had more disposable income because they weren't buying $15, $20 CDs anymore. They were getting their music virtually for free, and then could spend that money on something else. And so, oh my gosh, I've got money to go buy a concert. So I think that the money just kind of shifted a little bit to that side from people's income. I know it did with mine. And then you have this generation that values experiences more than they value solid physical things. And so because of that, they would rather, instead of buying something to hold in their hand, they'd rather go out and have fun with their friends and experience it, and then use social media to show everybody how much fun they had. So the convergence of those two things kind of helped my side of the business out, I think. And that generation is only doubling down on their experiences, and their disposable income is only going to get greater and greater and greater, meaning that my side of the business is going to be able to provide more and more expensive experiences for you to spend that money on. So because of that, I think it is only going to get, bigger the next 10 years.
I don't know if it's easier or harder for you guys. You guys work with artists at a certain level, so maybe it's easier, maybe it isn't. But how do you break through all the noise to make sure that your event, your artist gets heard or heard about over all the other events? Because everything is out there. There's a lot of noise in the market, and I keep reading articles. It's like that is a number one challenge for us, is to rise above that. How do you do that?
I think it's diligence for one thing. I'm a big believer in the funnel method, which is you continue to put good things in the funnel every day. You got to pack it at the top, and eventually it starts coming out at the bottom. But my first thought when you said that was the only thing that really makes a difference is the song. It's got to be something special about that artist or about that song that cuts through that clutter. And you're right that we work with artists of a certain level, but I think with Blake and I both, we're drawn to artists who speak to us in that way because a song spoke to us or something special about that person spoke to us. But I don't care if you are the best singer on the planet. It's not a singing contest. If you're not putting something in the top of that funnel every day, you're never going to cut through that clutter.
Yeah, I agree. I think it starts with the artists themselves and the kind of art that they're putting out. If you have an amazing artist that is creating amazing art, eventually that is going to cut through the clutter in and of itself. If you're dealing with a mediocre artist putting out mediocre art, then there's all kinds of those artists that are out there in the marketplace, and you are going to have a hard time cutting through the clutter because the art and the artists themselves can't stand out on their own. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about something that you guys have in common. You manage Lauren Elena, and you book Lauren Elena. You both have been involved in her careers. Just from a purely practical side, where does the conversation start when there's a tour? You and her decide there's going to be a tour based on a release or all those other decisions. Do you decide first, we want to do a tour, we want it to be from March through August, and then you say, Blake, find us some avails, or does Blake come to you and say, hey, I have some avails here, or what is that conversation like?
I think it works in all kinds of ways. In country music, first of all, we want to be touring all the time, basically. I mean, we will take windows off to create an album, or if we have something special, a TV, experience or something. But other than that, we want to have a spring tour, we want to have a fall tour, we want to kind of fill that calendar. So what Blake and I will talk, 2 or 3 times a week about what tours are out there, what opportunities are out there. But things come to us in all different ways. Last year we did the Jason Aldean tour. Blake and I will talk about what tours are out there and what are available. That was a situation where I'm friends with his manager, and he called me and said, would you consider this tour? So then Blake and I talk about, is that a good opportunity? Here's why we should do it. Here's why we shouldn't do it. The tour we're on now, Blake Shelton, came from the Starstruck camp. He's managed by Starstruck. So my old friends there called me and said, would you be interested in doing this? Interestingly, they asked us last year, and we decided not to do it for the amount of money because we felt like, although a great career move for her, we wanted to prove that we were worth more in the marketplace. So this year they came back for the money we wanted, and that plan worked out. But we have a real partnership. I mean, a lot of times I'm like, Blake, we have to have a tour. What's out there? And he'll come to me and say, here are your options.
We keep a grid of all of the headlining artists that are going out there, and who is filling the slot, if they put an offer out to someone, who that offer's out to, all that kind of stuff. And then when somebody locks in, we try to find out how much they locked in for. So because of that, knowing that information helps us because we can take that back and say, well, here are our benchmarks. Here's what other artists have locked in for. Here are the other artists that are available for these particular slots. And so we're able to kind of calculate our demand and how much money we're able to command for those slots. And so, Trish will come to me and say, hey, we've got this manager calling about this particular situation, a la Jason Aldean or Blake Shelton. And then I'm able to go back to my colleagues, gather all that information, and we're able to huddle up and say, okay, this is what I think we should ask for.
That's interesting about the money, and you declined them last year because we just talked about this in my concert promotion class Tuesday, that the great amount of disparity, not in all cases, but in most cases, between the headline talent and the support talent, and a lot of times the support talent is a flat guarantee and is considerably lower than what the talent. So the strategy in that case was like, we're gonna increase our value on the long arc by declining this and trying it again this year. Correct?
That's what we did, and we didn't know that it would come back around. We had a fantastic year last year with Lauren, notoriety-wise, and there was a great perception in the marketplace, and there aren't a lot of girls in her slot that are capable of doing a direct support slot. So I think we really lucked out in a lot of ways, but we took a calculated risk, and it paid off.
And the way the market is looking right now, there's been a lot of hubbub about lack of females out there on radio and success, and that's totally 100% true. It is a much harder environment for female artists right now, at least in country music, than it has been in a long time. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Any situation is a good thing and a bad thing. So any opportunity that's out there, we can take advantage of. And this is the opportunity that's put before us, is that now males are looking for females to take out on tour with them. Okay, there's not a lot to choose from, so we are kind of a valuable commodity, or at least we can position ourselves as a valuable commodity. As Trish was alluding to, we really wanted to try to get to that place where we're perceived as that second position, because there are even fewer available for that second position. And so when it comes time for us to go for that second position, establish ourselves as a second position, we can demand so much more money. I mean, just it's a supply and demand game once you get there. So that's what we were shooting for when we discussed that. It's like, what can we do to get that second position? And I think this is the door opening for us with Blake Shelton and that started last week.
Blake, this is to you about the organization of CAA in general. When you've come to class, we've talked about this before. There's an agent is responsible for certain artists. You are the agent that books Lauren, Elena, and whatever your roster is. But then there's also territorial agents. There's all these concentric circles of organization. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So each agent is responsible for a certain territory. On the Southeast United States, arenas, amphitheaters, stadiums, that kind of thing. So any of our acts that are routing through my territory that are big enough to fit in those venues, those size venues, I negotiate the deals for on the front end and then bring them to the responsible agent, the RA, who takes it to management and then gets it confirmed, pass, or whatever. So yeah, so we're responsible for that, but then we have our own kind of stable of artists and clients that we're really involved with on a micro level, with strategy, going over the offers with a fine-tooth comb to see is the right ticket price, is the right venue, etc. Yeah, and then sometimes there are job duties that kind of aren't in your wheelhouse, but you just pick up the phone and you just go and do it anyway, because that's what it means to be a part of an artist team. So, yeah, it's describing an agent, what an agent's role nowadays is kind of difficult. But I like it in a good way,
Seems the agent in this day and age, the new agents, are more part of the artist team than they were even 15 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago.
I agree with that. Yeah. But it's good. It's in a good way, because you want to pick the brains of different people in different circles, so you're getting different perspectives and you're making the right moves. I love that Trisha has this amazing background with these iconic artists that she can draw from when we're talking about Lauren, how to kind of move Lauren up the chain. But you're right. It used to be we were kind of relegated to the outside for a long period of time, and now people actually care what we think.
We wouldn't go that far.
I've got one for you, Tricia. And it comes from your experience actually at Starstruck, but I'm sure that you may already be or will do with Lauren Elena, and that is sponsorship facilitation. As manager, do you actively go out and seek those opportunities, or just more field offers, or is it basically farm that out to a specialty agency who's good at finding opportunities and a good fit?
I would say it's a combination of all of those things. Right now, in this early part, first quarter, I have reached out to all of the special agencies that we've dealt with in the past, as well as CAA. In fact, I have a dinner with some of the sponsorship agents next week to introduce them to Lauren and talk about things she likes, what would be a good partnership moving forward. There are also sponsorship people at the label that we deal with, and we have some long-term partners that they've brought to the table. But there's some people that I've just reached out to on my own that are a good fit. So it's sort of a combination of all those things. But it's a careful line of, you don't want to appear to be selling your artist out. You want it to be something that's authentic to the brand, that feels genuine, and that it's not overdone. I mean, the way all these artists promote themselves now on social media, it's very important for them to maintain their identity on social media and it not just be commercial after commercial. So it's a fine line, but they come from all those places, and then it's just a matter of finding the right fit.
Yeah, I've seen some real odd things that ended up being good fits, but to describe it, someone they'd say, I don't see that. And I forget who, it may have been Tim McGraw or someone in the past 10 years has had a sponsorship thing with Kingsford charcoal briquettes.
Right.
And I thought, I would never have thought of that, but it ended up being successful, I think.
Right.
Do artists that you've worked with, or Lauren Elena in particular, you ever bring an idea to them and they say, I don't.
Oh, sure. That happens all the time. One of the first campaigns I worked on was Fritos Scoops with Reba. And that was the first time I really realized the impact that had by having her face on a bag in a different retail space than we normally would be in. Rather than being in the record store or at the end caps of Target or Walmart or whatever, we were in that grocery store. That presence made such a difference. But also working with Reba, we had milk. Remember the Got Milk campaign? Did they still have those? They came to us and had a huge pitch, and we were just sold on Reba's the exact right fit for us, all American. And then they do the whole spill, and Reba says, I don't drink milk. It's bad for your vocal cords.
Did you have something to say about the sponsorship?
I mean, it's two things. As you're an artist, when you're first coming up, you're taking anything anybody will give you. You don't care. You just need to survive, and you need to make opportunities and build your career. At least just get it launched some way or another. But then there comes this time where you transition, where you're like, okay, now we're building a brand. So we have to be more thoughtful about this. It's not so much about the money. I mean, it is always about the money, but it's more about how you're messaged out there. Because anytime you message the public as an artist, you're either building your brand or you're evolving it some way or another. And so, what corporate brands want to do is they want to piggyback on your message that you're messaging out there, and so there's a cost to that. And so you get paid for it, but also, you got to make sure that it's authentic to your brand, or you're not building your brand like you should. Yeah, that's just it's an interesting transition when that happens, because there's like brand creation, brand monetization, and then you're curating the brand. At some point in time, you have to protect the brand, then you curate the brand. So, yeah, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but that's part of what this is right now. We're kind of in the brand monetization / building of the artist brand.
Now, that's interesting stuff. You can wander in the weeds on that one all you want. I'm very entertained, and I'm sure they are too. Let's go out to the crowd here and take a question or two.
Hi. My question is, what was the most? I actually have two questions. What was the most exciting venue that you guys have been a part of, and also for us, young artists and people want to be in artist management and stuff? Do you guys have any advice or any tips that you guys want to give us?
The most exciting venue I've been in, and it may be the same for Blake, is Red Rocks.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing. When Lauren played Red Rocks, it was a moment for sure.
It was gorgeous. Madison Square Garden was a pretty big moment too. Played a lot of venues with Reba that were pretty amazing, but I still think Red Rocks is probably the best. Advice for being an artist or advice for being in artist management? As an artist manager, the first thing you have to let go of, and it sounds easier than it is your ego. To be an artist manager, it's completely about the other, how you can let that go. And I guess if you're an artist, it's about you. So, no, I'm saying, but either one of those things takes complete dedication, and absolutely pouring yourself into that, for sure.
Yeah, I would say you have to be relentless. You just have to be relentless, and you just cannot take any other option except for the fact that you're going to be successful as a manager or an artist. There's no plan B. I mean, when I went to Nashville, Mom said, "Hey, well, you got an MBA, so you can be a banker if you want to." And I'm like, I didn't come to Nashville to be a banker. That's not a choice. My choice is to be successful in the music business or to be homeless, one or the other. And so, that's it. So you have to dedicate yourself and commit yourself to that.
I have a question if a student doesn't. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg, which comes first. In your opinion, which comes first for an artist, a manager or an agent? Because I know a manager is probably looking for somebody that's playing and got a following maybe already, so they have to get those shows maybe. So in the perfect world, what comes first?
I think it depends on the artist, don't you? Because some artists need to figure out who they are as artists and come up with a strategy and a game plan and be able to get some music together. And some artists are adept at doing that. They're very good at doing that. They can figure that out on their own. They just need somebody to go and start finding dates for them. But then there are other artists who are uber insanely talented, but do not know what to do with that. Do not know how to put that into content and organize a plan to move forward. And that's when you need a manager to come in and do that for them.
I think that's true. And I think several times I've met with artists that they want a manager immediately. And they haven't developed their artistry. They don't know what they're trying to say. And as much as I'd like to be, I'm not in the artist development business, So they barely have 2 dimes, and they probably have a day job. And I always say, you don't need a manager. I mean, why do you want to pay me to do? You've got to get way further down the road. So I'm not saying an agent comes first or a manager comes first, but I think your self-development and finding out who you are may come first.
Agreed. It depends on the artist. It depends on the manager that the artist is talking to. What the manager sees their role as, the age, it's hard it's a hard question.
So as a manager, then what are you looking for that potential client to have when you would accept them as a client? What would you expect them to be?
Well, it's different, and this is going to sound so discriminatory, and I don't mean it that way, but for males and females, I would say that's very different. Because really, the males that I have found that are going to be uber successful, like the Luke Combs of the world, have come up through the club system and have booked themselves and have found their sound and have played everywhere they could possibly play. That opportunity doesn't exist for the girls. They don't have the same, no club's going to let them come in because they don't sell beer. So it's a different, I don't expect that from the girl clients I meet with. But from the males, I do expect that they've showed some initiative and have done some touring and have put a band together and done those things. With either a female or a male, I would say they have to have that special thing that you just know they have it or they don't, really.
Yeah, there's this intangible that when you go and you hear them sing or see them live, it grabs your gut and you really have no option but to work with them. I mean, that's the way it happens to me. It's like I'll look at them and say, I got to do this. I have to do this. There's just, it's this project is calling my name, and I will never forgive myself if I don't grab it. So yeah, it's a gut thing. It's really weird because outside the music business, nothing else works like that. I try to explain that to a doctor or a lawyer or insurance, and what gut? What are you talking about? Yeah. So But yeah, it's just that intangible. And you have to get used to trusting it and relying on it. Because for so long, fear will like cloud any kind of like any messages your gut is telling you. Fear will like, or anxiety will cloud that up. And so the hardest thing to do is like kind of make that dissipate. So you can kind of sit down, be quiet with yourself and say, this is the right decision, this is the wrong decision, and that way you can move forward.
Following up on that, it sounds like what you both are saying, and disagree with me if you disagree, is that in terms of when you want to work with an artist, either as an agent or as a manager, I mean, as you know, there are a lot of really talented people out in the world that can blow you away, but if they don't know who they are and they are more like, I'm really talented, what do you want me to be? I'll be that. Then you have to just say, I can't help you.
Correct. If they're trying to figure out what I want them to be, it's not the right act for me. I mean,
Or if they come in and say, I want to be famous.
yes.
You know, I always find that such a turnoff, is that it's got to be that I have to sing because I just live for it. I sing every day. There's nothing else I can do. I live and breathe music. That's the person you want, for sure. But I also want to reference, I had a band, Pawn Shop Kings, which is a brother duo. They were based in Southern California, and they played here in Nashville, and I had that feeling Blake is talking about. I just fell in love with these guys, had to work with them. There was no choice. I just felt like I have to do this. I spent 5 years with them, and over the long haul, they didn't want necessarily what I wanted, and I had to go to them and say, I mean, they were happy being a regional act and not having their success bigger than that. But for me, it's only going to work if I can because early in my career I worked with these national acts, so I don't really know how to work it on a regional level without it growing. So, I mean, that was, and we're still great friends, but that was just a moment when I did feel like these guys had that thing, but you can't want it, or you can't want different things than the artist wants.
And you can't want it more than they want it.
Yeah.
There's so many like lessons that are out there, and that's one of them. You know, you've got that artist has to have a drive to like make it happen, to get in front of people, entertain the people, to
Right.
be the center of attention, you know, and that's part of it, and that's part of success as well. And they have to crave it, you know.
Right.
And
That band in particular, I just want to say, we got a national deal, a Christian deal. So they were putting out this Christian album, but they never wanted to work in rooms that were bigger than 100 people. So for me, you know what, but it's important that you listen to your artists and how to make that work. So, but yeah, you can't want it differently than they do.
it's hard to commission
Well, yeah, I was
A
really thinking about
gross.
me.
the 100 passage room, you know.
No.
You don't want to do that for too long. You want to be moving somewhere, you know.
Well, when you find an act that you believe in that much, you want everybody to know about it.
Yes.
So you want to do it in a big way.
It's said in the books that there's this 5-year peak earnings window for most artists. You know, there are artists who've had the 5-year peak and then go and then come back. But ultimately, you know, if they survive long enough, they become a heritage act, legacy act, and they're still working Tupelo and, you know, Splunge, Mississippi, and various places like that. Is that still a rule, do you think? It's like, if you stay with an artist long enough as their manager, do you sort of see those patterns? It's like, okay, we're having a peak now, but I know in 15 years, if I'm around, I need to be helping you plan now for your career when you're 50 or your career when you're later. Is that?
I think there are peaks and valleys, and I definitely think it depends on the artist. Lauren is an interesting case because she was runner-up on season 10 of American Idol. So that happened to be a show where they had 35 million viewers for that finale.
It was big back then. I mean, that's when it was like really massive.
I mean, it was Super Bowl big at the time. So she came off that, you know, she sold 250,000 albums, I think, right away. Never had a really successful song at radio, but she had a lot of notoriety, was able to book big shows. And then the time kind of passed, that TV score went away a little bit, and she had vocal cord surgery and couldn't sing for 6 months. So it was a big valley. It was over. So I started managing.
Bunch of failed singles.
Yeah, a bunch of failed singles. 4 or 5 at that time, 6 maybe. But I picked her up right after she'd had that vocal cord surgery, and we just reinvented it like that had never happened. So in her mind, I she feels like she's had an 8-year career, and I feel like she's had a 5-year career. But she had that huge peak. And I think she appreciates it more now that it's coming back around in a different way. But I think throughout the life of an artist, that happens.
And in the end, I think it was good that happened to her in particular, because she hadn't become really comfortable with herself and who she is on stage, that persona on stage. And so she was able to grow up and mature a lot and become more of an artist that people feel like they want to really engage with and get in touch with, and just more interesting all around, I think.
Is that sort of more the trend? You know, the model that a lot of people look at is Taylor Swift in terms of the new acts. It's like she engaged with 12-year-old girls and would hang around and sign every autograph when she was first starting, and it has paid off in a big way for her. Is fans want the engagement more and more, and if the artist is not engaging the fan on that sort of level with social media and other ways, is that they're just all these missed opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely right. Taylor's kind of a unicorn. I mean, we worked with Taylor when she was 15, I think is when we signed Taylor. Yeah. And we had her from 14 or 15 all the way up to right around 18. And I've never seen a teenager that would outwork every single person around her. She would get up in the morning. She was homeschooled a lot of the time that I was around her. And when you're homeschooled, you can like finish everything in 3 hours, right? But she would get up and like start work at like 7:30. And she would get on her MySpace, at the time's what it was, and work her MySpace. And when I say work MySpace, she would go onto her friends' pages and like post stuff. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for listening. Love this dress that you have in this photo. That kind of stuff, right? It was true engagement. That's what she would do. Blow people's mind. And then she would songwrite for a while. Then when she would practice her guitar. Then when she would practice for vocal lessons. And then she would end her day just like any of us, working in the business would end our days as well. But she took it that seriously that early on. She was daring people to work harder than her, which was incredibly motivating. But she did that year after year after year after year after year. But I mean, you look for that X factor. The thing that I've kind of come to realize is, and Trisha alluded to this earlier, is it's not the talent business. It is not a talent business, right? It has something to do with it, without a doubt. But if it were the talent business, I would have so many headliners right now that I'm the agent for. But there's something else that's more than that. It's like a drive. It's like this relentless drive to be the best and to be successful. Like Tim McGraw may not have the best voice in the world, but he is going to outwork every single person around him. And whatever talents he has, he's going to ping those up to number 10 as close as he can to get there. And that's respectable, Kenny Chesney, I think, is the same way, has that same thing. Taylor Swift wasn't the best vocalist when she was first coming up, but she worked and worked and worked. And now she's kind of come on the other side and is a decent vocalist now, right? She's respectable. But it's that work ethic. There's nothing replaces the work ethic.
That made me think of Reba received the Kennedy Center honors this year. And the Washington Post did a piece on her, and I loved her quote from that, where she said, "There are 10,000 girls who sing better than I do, but not one of them is willing to work as hard as I am or sacrifice what I've been willing to sacrifice to do this." And that's the work ethic of a legend. Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
Cool. Another question now.
So work ethic is super important, but how do you balance a family life and a personal life while also maintaining your career life as well?
She brought it up, Trisha. You knew it was coming, right? Okay, for me, I have 3 daughters. Yeah. 10, 7, and 3, almost 4. See, they're about to turn the next age, right? My 10-year-old just turned 10 yesterday, so it's a weird season. But you have to make choices, hard choices. And you have to compartmentalize as much as possible. And you have to make sacrifices both ways. I've had to make sacrifices in my career. I truly believe that if I wanted to neglect my wife and kids, I could be so much more successful than I am right now. But I've made really hard choices for my family and against my career. But I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. Can you have it all? I don't think you can have it all. I think you can have it all in certain times, maybe, but not all the time. But there's some rules that I keep as a dad and a husband. Rule number 1 is I never work in the office past 6:30. So our office closes at 6:30. I never work. I am out of there at 6:30. If I have office work to do, I do it later at night. I take my computer home and I'll open it up at 9:30 when everybody's in bed, and I'll work till midnight, 1 o'clock, whenever. Do that. I try to keep my weekends sacred as much as possible with the family. But when you're in the concert business and you're traveling, and most concerts are Fridays and Saturdays, that's hard to do. But and I try to do something special with my family on a Saturday or a Sunday, every weekend that I can, just so they have something. Once a year, I take each of my daughters individually on a daddy-daughter trip for like a weekend, and we just do whatever they want to do, wherever city we go to. So I try to do that.
And that's been some cool stuff. Share it on Facebook, and I'm jealous of those trips that you take those girls on.
Thank you.
They're good.
Thank you. I do that. I try to help as much as possible in the mornings, getting the kids ready and that. But when I'm at work, it's like I am at work. And it makes that time that I'm working so much more important. And I can't deal with frivolous crap. I just can't do it, If somebody's going to come in and want to work with me and they're not pinging 100% and they're not going to put 100% to the table, then guess what? You're not in my life. I can't have you in my life. You're not that important because you're physically taking time away from my family. So if you're doing that, you have to matter to me. You have to matter to yourself. And you have to, there's this level that you have to bring to the table. And so, and I'm not going to deal with people who are going to take away from my soul, my spirit, etc. Right? You got to bring some positivity to the table as well. I'm going to bring positivity to the table on my end. I just need you to do the same thing, right? Because I've dealt with artists and managers before where you go home at night and you're just frustrated, and you end up taking that frustration out on your family. Not worth it. Not worth it. So whatever projects I have to work with, they have to feed my soul, so I can in turn feed my family's soul, This is a theory. It's a work in progress. I'm horrible at balancing, but the fact that you're paying attention to it, I guess, means that you're trying, So, that's my answer. As a dad, as a husband, that's my best answer for you. I'm a work in progress. I mess up constantly, and I'm trying to overcompensate for that both ways with the career and the family, but that's it. That's my answer to your question, Trish and me. Another one.
You have a good answer. I would say that Blake and I are in two different businesses. I mean, he has a 9-to-5 office job. I do not. So my job is 24/7. I haven't had a weekend in years. They sound awesome. No, I mean, I do get occasional weekends. That's not true. I just came off of a 9-day road trip where I was in Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Sioux Falls, LA, New York. One more city in there, maybe. I'm single. That's shocking. I know. But I think you can always play it through and make those decisions as you go. I made some decisions. I could certainly be married and have kids and do this. And I know a lot of very successful female managers that do. But management is not a 9-to-5 job. It's a full-time job. And I'm super happy with my life. But I don't everyone makes their own choices and does their own thing. And I think Blake's done a brilliant job with his girls and his family. And, Lauren's a lot like my own child when you look at it like that.
Yes. Also,
and I've had a lot of kids along the way that I've, that I feel like I've nurtured and been in their lives that way. So, but I think to think that you can have it all. God, again, I sound like such a feminist, and I'm not. But Blake's a man, and he has a fantastic wife who stays at home and takes care of those girls. He's got a great life. That's not the same choice that was given to me, but I'm 54 years old. You have different choices, and you will. You'll just make the life you want.
It's correct. I've been really fortunate in a lot of ways. My wife, with my youngest daughter, she did start coming home, and she could stay at home. We were lucky. We were in a position where she could do that. We did have to kind of divide duties up a little bit, but as anybody knows in this environment, day and time, when it comes to parenting, women always take the larger brunt of the load. They always do. It just happens that way. No matter how hard, the husband may try, the best intentions, it just doesn't, So you're right. She was able to stay at home, and, not a lot of people have that luxury. She's extremely smart and astute. And so she decided that she wants to be a real estate agent now, so she's working on that. So anybody wants to buy a house in Nashville, give me a holler.
She's in a good market.
Yeah, right. So she's going to start doing that, and we're just going to see what that means. We'll just work it out. But you have to figure out what you value and what you want, and then you have to prioritize, and then move forward accordingly. I think that's what you have to do.
Kind of following up on a little aspect of that, and Tricia, you probably deal with this more than Blake, although you both probably do deal with it. It's like you mentioned where all you've been the past 10 days, and as an artist manager, you are kind of helping to guide that artist around, and whomever you're dealing with in Omaha and Sioux Falls, you want to make them feel like they are the most important venue, the most important whatever, and that's got to be tough, I think did she play Sioux Falls in the Denny Sanford Center or something? It's a brand new venue. It's supposed to be really good, but it's Sioux Falls, and it's like really cold there right now.
There's a lot of snow.
Yeah. So is that difficult to tour with the artist and kind of move them around and kind of manage them? And so, won't you meet so-and-so? This is someone you need to meet, and this is...
Right. Well, I've been fortunate to have great artists to do that with. With Reba and Kelly, I was on the road a lot with them, and I learned from the best of how to do that. With Lauren, I'm not always out on the road with her, although this was the start of the Blake Shelton tour. Blake Shelton, I think, is an icon in our business, and when you see that show, I hope you all get a chance to see it. He loves country music. He plays 2.5 hours solid country music. Before that, he does a VIP where he plays 30 minutes acoustically. So he's played 3 hours of music. He knows every song you can think of. For me, I wanted to have that introduction, that she sees his work ethic, also the people in the building, and I didn't want to be embarrassed. I wanted to be sure that our show ran smoothly, which involves a lot of production issues, band issues. So there's a lot of ball juggling and moving components to make that all happen. So I felt like that was important, and then we had a couple of TV appearances. But management is a moving target for sure.
Yeah, they the first night of any tour, you're almost always going to see the manager there, because there's so many things that can go wrong, and so many things that need to be worked out on the front end, which is the case that night. So I usually come out on that first night to give moral support and just kind of be there, but ideally it's usually not the best show of the tour, because nerves are frayed, it's the first show. Nobody feels comfortable with what's going to happen, and, but, I like to come out in the middle of the tour because, everybody's in a nice rhythm. People are in a good mood. You can hang out, joke around. It's much more fun. Yeah.
Is that why you will see sometimes tours start the first date in Sioux Falls or Des Moines or somewhere?
Exactly why.
And then actually get to Memphis and to LA, and
you want to build up to Madison
later.
Square Garden, yes. You want to build up to it, yes. Oh, but another thing too, and you're talking about when you go into a venue and you interact with those people and you know those people. So I do something with Lauren that I started 2 years ago, and what I'll do is, and by the way, Trish and I were mentioning on the way down. This is a weekend that I'm not going to be able to fulfill this, but I do these cards for her. They're like little buck slip cards, and I put them in envelopes. And so for every show, there's an envelope with a card in there that says essentially, "Welcome to Oklahoma City, population da 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 da. The main industries are ba 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 ba. Here are the main colleges, the teams. Here's some cool restaurants. Here's some interesting facts about the history of the city, yada yada yada. Here's some interesting facts about the venue. Have a wonderful show. Love you, Blake." And so what that does is it gives her an opportunity to go around and have some like quick fun facts in her head, And so when she's interacting with people, whether she uses it or not, I don't know. But, she's able to say, "Hey, I heard that this famous person was from this city. Is that true? Yes. I heard that this city got started by da-da-da-da-da. Is that true? Yes." And all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, you care about us. You know us. You've done your research." It's like a quick kind of cheat sheet. So knowing a little bit about an area that you're in and letting them know that you care enough to know these things is a big deal, even if you're just dropping it, the same little fun fact 50 times during the day to just different people.
That's pretty cool. I can imagine that would appeal to the locals when they have a big star, coming through and say, "Oh, I hear you export coconut or whatever, How did you know that?" Be thinking of another question because we'll probably have time for one or two more, but I kind of wanted to shift gears into something that we were talking about a little earlier. And that is, this came about as a result of conversations that I've had with Blake over the years when he's come down, but I'm sure that you deal with it too, and we talked about it earlier. And that is the whole culture of, we are inundated with stimuli in these days. 1 billion phone calls, 45 million texts, emails, and are we really that far away from clairvoyant transmissions? I don't know. That was a joke. But as a manager, as an agent, you don't have the option of disengaging from that. And if you get 54 emails in an afternoon, while you might not get to all of them, probably 28 of them you have to field and have to respond. So what do you have a strategy, each one of you, for dealing with that? Because both of you have people coming at you from the client side, from the buyer side, from people wanting Elena, from her, wanting things. So how do you deal with the enormous amount of stimuli?
I'm really concerned about Blake trying to text people on the way back when he's driving, for sure.
Not text, I want to email. Different. Well, once again, we'll answer this question probably two different ways because, Tricia, as a manager, you have to be available 24/7 whenever that artist needs you or wants you or has a question, etc. So she can never turn it off, ever. I have the luxury of turning it off a little bit, during the 7 o'clock when I'm home, at 7 till like 8:30 when I get the girls in bed, and I can that's my sacred time. And so unless somebody is dying or dead, don't call me, don't mess with me during that time. But you gotta be engaging. You have to respond. You have to be on top of things, or at least try extremely hard to be on top of things, because if you aren't, there's somebody else that will. If they're employing you to do a job and to take care of things, and you don't think that that's a high priority, they're gonna fire you and find somebody that will make that a high priority, and that's the person that will be successful. So you can get by with it for a little bit, but eventually people are gonna get wise to you that you're half-assing it. So we're gonna get somebody who's full on board. That's what you have to worry about. That's what keeps me engaged constantly, because I want to be the best, and I want to do the best for my artists, and so.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of logistically strategies to even get through that kind of content that we receive. And I think maybe you and I do the same thing in this way, is that I always put my eyes on it. Maybe I don't always respond right away, but I always know what's in I've got close to 10,000 emails right now, but I know what's in there, shockingly enough, and I know I got a call out here from a guy saying, "Oh, Trish, I sent you that email and you didn't answer." Well, it wasn't time sensitive, so I hadn't answered him, but I knew when he called me, oh yeah, I'm sorry, here's your answer, whatever. So I knew what it was. I think we always have to have our eyes on it, but I mean, Blake and I were talking today. I had production issues. I started work at 4 this morning with because I had things I had to deal with, and then I knew we had this drive. You just do it. I don't know. You just stay on top of it.
And then I've had a rule forever where I'll return every phone call and I return every email, and I did that forever, and I still do that for the most part. But there's this thing called essentialism, where you have to get to the point. You have to make sure that you figure out what's essential, what is not essential. Cut the essential stuff out because it's wasting your time. It's wasting your life. And focus and put all your effort into the essential things. It's a little book actually called Essentialism. It'll take you like 2 hours to read it. It's amazing. And so now I've had to make the hard decision, a rough decision, and say, this person is a needy person. They're just going to suck from me. There's nothing that either of us are going to get any kind of mutual benefit out of. And so because of that, I can't deal with this. This is not for me. This is not for me, which is hard for me to do because I'm a giving, serving person. And so now there's certain things like if somebody needs advice, yes, I'll get on the phone. I'll give you advice if you need. But there's people that just want to figure out a way to get something from you. There's those people in the end. And so I've had to start cutting those out. Little tricks where like I focus on phone calls for 30 minutes. I focus on emails for 30 minutes instead of like doing both and multitasking. It's a work in progress trying to figure out how to manage kind of a workload that we take on.
Well, toward essentialism, it sounds like that would be really good advice for students who are, contacting people for potential internships or maybe trying to book their band and talk to a club owner. It's like quick and to the point, be brief, get to your business. And you probably are a lot more apt to respond to that than you will with all the background. If someone gives you a bunch of background to something that you don't need.
Correct. If I want to know the background, I'll ask. I usually do. I'm nice enough to do that.
Or resumes too, I think, to be concise, one page. Don't send pages and pages. Songs the same way. If someone sends me 10 of their best songs, I'm out. Send me your best song. Then I might be interested.
That's fascinating. See, I don't get to deal with that. I don't get to deal with the creative side. So when she talks about that stuff, I kind of geek out.
That's good to hear because that's what we teach. It's like whether you're sending something to a label or a publisher or an artist manager or whatever, if you have 10 good songs, then you probably don't. You have 2 good songs, send those to. And with resumes, 1 page.
Great.
Nobody cares that you got, 95 on Mrs. Mildred, somebody's midterm in, freshman year or something.
Yeah, it's funny because songwriters, I just kind of just go off on a tangent a bit. Songwriters, God love them. Artists do. They think every song that they write is good, like in the beginning, of course, Like, it's really good. It's really, Mom says it's good. My friend Kathy says it's great. It's good. No, it's not good. It's not. And it's interesting because, I wasn't good at what I did until I did it for, at least 10 years. And then I started getting, okay, I think. Same way with writing, right? You have to, do it over and over and over again. You write 150 songs, then you throw all of them away, and then you start again. Then you're at the starting line, from what I hear, and that's when you can start really kind of honing your craft. But it's like that on my end, there's an art to what we do, and it takes a long time to learn it, and I'm still kind of learning it, and I hope I'm still learning it as it evolves. But that's what makes it exciting, it's a process. You're not looking for the destination. You're trying to get really good at that process, and the destination is going to take care of itself.
Maybe a couple more questions out here. We're getting close to running out of time, but we have time for one more question. Caitlin Barnes, just shout it out.
Okay. So, A couple of questions. So, when you get a new client, are you typically seeking them out, or is it them coming to you when you find artists? And my next question would be, how would it be wise, you think, or would you suggest that artists that are trying to get into an outlet into the field, for them to start in another position in the field and use that as a way to find success? And how would you, what would your advice be for someone to come in with a level of humbleness, but also to show you they have what it takes?
Blake is super humble, so he can probably address that. No, I think, so you want to be an artist? Is that what you're asking? If someone wanted to be an artist, I think you have to make the decision right now. Do I want to be an artist or do I want to work in the music business? I would never hire someone in an office position who wanted to be a singer. I just wouldn't, because I want to nurture you and where you want to be. I have a guy on the road who we hired as our ear monitor engineer. And somewhere along the way, he told me, you know, I was always in a band, and my goal really is to get back on stage. So I thought, you know, why are you doing this? Let's figure that out. Now he's our utility player on stage. I feel like I don't want somebody working in my office that wants to be an artist. And I feel like if that's your dream, you got to do that. You had 15 questions. That was one of them. What was the other?
Artists, when you have clients, do you go after them or do they come to you? How does that?
I think, and you and I just talked about that you had a client that you just pursued and got, which was awesome.
They pursued me. And then another one that I pursued for 3 years.
Oh, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
The answer is both.
Yeah, both is the answer. Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. That's
No,
fine.
I had a client that literally I just signed. And I didn't pitch to him. But we vibed, right? And it was just like, okay, this is going to happen. And he just basically said, you're my guy. And I'm like, I don't think I'm your guy. Yeah, you're my guy. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm your guy. Maybe I could be your guy. Yeah, I think so, you know? And then there's every reason in the world to do it, you know? So there's that. And then there's a client that we're like in the final stages of locking this thing down, so I don't want to jinx it, but it's really massive. And I've worked on this thing for 3 years. I went a year and a half with 2 business cards sitting on my desk that reminded me that I needed to call this client again. And I would come in either once a week or once every other week, something like that. I would call and leave a voicemail that would not get returned. Or I would send an email, hey, just checking in, let me know how things are going, what's the next step, yada, yada. Did not get returned. A year and a half, okay? And I set these business cards on my desk just to taunt me. You haven't done it, Blake. You haven't done it, Blake. You haven't done it. You haven't locked it down, Blake. You know, that's what it was saying to me, you know, in my head. It would just like push me, like, damn it. So I'd go back in and I'd do it again, you know? And so, you know, if you want something bad enough, you just keep on it. And eventually they're going to say, well, they deserve a shot. You know, let's just give them a shot. You know? But then sometimes life is going to present some really interesting, cool opportunities. And they're just going to show up and just kind of fall in your lap. But they fall in your lap because you've got all this experience and background to draw from, and it makes it seem like it's easy when it actually happens. So, yeah. But Trisha, look, she undersells herself. Like, she's worked with icons. She worked with Alabama in their heyday. Like, they're the biggest band in country music history, right? And she was very young doing that. She's been very accomplished at a young age. And Reba, you were doing amazing things with Reba very young, weren't you?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think that I was accomplished as much as I just showed up and worked. That's the thing. I just showed up and worked and worked and worked. But something you said made me think of the reason I'm working with Lauren was Blake's counterpart in LA. Her LA agent called me and just would not let it go. I said, no. Is she an orphan? Because I'm not working with parents. That was my first response. And then I said, she was 19, and I thought, no way, not doing that. But he was sort of relentless and just take a meeting, and it's all worked out great. So you never know how it's going to come. With Reba, I knew someone, I'd worked with someone at Alabama who had been hired into her office, and he hired me there. It was just, I knew when I saw Reba win, I don't even know what award it was. I think it was CMA Vocalist of the Year for the first time. And she said, I am going to kick down the doors for everybody I can. And I don't know. I knew then I'm going to work there. But how it happened was because I'd proved myself at Alabama and then found somebody that got me in there.
Another question.
Yeah, got a question, and I'm an artist, and I kind of wear all of those hats in different ways. From booking, managing, I'm actually advanced a couple shows sitting here, but
Not listening.
I was listening, and your utility player, is that Kevin Post you're talking about?
No, it's Nick Gibbs.
Oh, okay. There's another guy on my team. Anyway, the question is really, and it comes down to sustainability of artists, of our community. What are the trends that you see in different communities? I spend a lot of time in Austin and Colorado and the West and different places where I play and work and build shows. But it's really a community thing that, it's a life cycle of how our industry is, but also as our community is of developing artists to, prolonging the spirit of what we're building. How do you tap into that and see those trends in your day-to-day jobs?
So there's a couple of ways you can look at that. There are trends that are out there. There are people who are good at kind of spotting the trends and then, getting on that wave and riding it or taking advantage of it. And there are people who are pioneers. And those are the ones who create the trend, or they know the trends are coming, and they're able to kind of go out there. And those are the ones that have like a sixth sense, I can't tell you how many times that somebody's come to the table. Look, chain smokers. See, some of my best friends are chain smokers' agents, and they come in and they play that. What is the massive song? Never Getting Older. Played it before it got released to anyone. And I'm like, are you serious? You wasted 3 minutes of my life for this? Nothing's going to happen with this. Nothing's going to happen. You get it wrong sometimes, right? Like hindsight's 20/20. Whenever you hear it everywhere and everybody's into it, it's easy to like it then, right? But when it's sitting there in front of you, you don't know. Okay? So, your question, there are all kinds of trends. There's a trend right now where heritage acts are coming back. Alabama is having the biggest year this year than they're ever going to have any 2 or 3 previous years combined. And it's massive. And so, you've got that trend. But as an artist, you have to be authentic to yourself and live or die by it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least I know I'm authentic. I think that's what you have to focus on. You just really can't focus on the trends themselves. You just go out there. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to put authentic art out there, and I'm going to push this along as much as possible, and then figure out a way to monetize it. And then if it catches on, then we'll do the next thing. We'll figure out how to scale it from there. I think that's what you have to focus on. Does that make sense?
I think a great example of that is Casey Musgraves made a beautiful album. Won, all genre Grammy of the Year. She had not had 1 minute of radio play on that album. No station played that music. I think people at the label said, there's nothing we can do with this when she turned it in. But the following day, she had 50 ads at radio for that. I mean, that song's going to get played. That song's going to be a hit now.
So massive amount of copies, the next day after she won those Grammys. So, I mean, yeah.
But yeah, because she was authentic to herself and just created the art and not chased the trends. That was nothing anyone saw coming. But now we're all panicked. I talked to a producer this morning. We're all panicked that, so this stuff we've been doing now we're going more traditional, right? Because of Casey Musgraves. Everybody's panicked that it's creating this whole new trend. But the real thing is that you create the trend. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, it's like when Nirvana came out with Smells Like Teen Spirit, it just crushed grunge overnight. Well, did Kurt Cobain did he say to himself, oh, I'm going to crush grunge. I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I'm going to write this song. Smells Like Teen Spirit. No, he was authentic to himself, and he was going to go out there, fearless, bold, and whatever happens, happens. And you know what? He changed things. He changed things overnight.
I think Kurt Cobain's birthday was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think there was a
Yeah.
local celebration at a venue for that. It was beer and Cheez-It night. Yeah.
Okay.
A day late.
Well, we've run out of time, and I want to thank both of you, Tricia and Blake, for being with us today, and please thank them one more time. We're going to have a little refreshment, a little social time over here, so please do hang around, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.